the earth in other ways. Many still do. Animism, the belief that spirit infuses objects, nature, and the whole of existence, is a fundamental principle of many indigenous societies. In Taoism, cosmic energy or life force is everywhere and is constantly seeking harmony and balance between all things. Ancient Andean civilizations placed the spirit of Pachamama, or Mother Earth, at the very center of their worldview. And today, for many indigenous people of the world, like the Ua tribe in Colombia, the earth is not just the dust from which human beings are made. It's the spirit of their people and ancestors. It's their history. It is life itself. This isn't always an easy idea for people in today's Western societies to grasp. The Druids of ancient Britain did grasp it, focusing their spiritual practices on a reverence and connection with nature. But when Christianity spread through Europe, animism was condemned as pagan and savage. European colonialism enforced these views around the globe in places like the Americas and Australia, crushing the indigenous peoples and their nature wisdom. Since the birth of agriculture, humans had been manipulating the world around them, harnessing, dividing and selling its natural resources. But under colonization, the earth became a place to be conquered, dominated, farmed, fished, plundered, and mined on a vast scale. Was there any scientific thinking behind our ever-increasing control over the natural world? 17th century Europe thought so. In fact, thought was all the rage then. As French philosopher René Descartes and others like Sir Isaac Newton helped to kick off the Enlightenment, an era that prized reasoning, science, and order. A new view of the world emerged, with human beings as the thinking, rational masters, and nature as our unthinking, unfeeling servant. Standing apart from her, humans investigated nature's ultimate questions, dissecting her into smaller and smaller pieces. This brought us great power. And with great power comes... you know the rest. The Anthropocene age had begun, an epoch defined by one dominant species, us. On a planet that is billions of years old, in just 500 years, much of the human race has come to see itself as the rulers and center of all life. Today, we are still trying to bend the planet's environment, processes, and biodiversity to our will. Our vast, sprawling cities have pushed nature out of sight and out of mind. The world is attempting to meet the urgent challenge of climate change. But can anything fundamentally change while we still see ourselves as somehow separate from Earth? There are signs of hope. Other voices are starting to be heard once again. Influenced by a resurgent indigenous view of Pachamama, Bolivia and Ecuador have passed laws granting all nature equal rights with humans. And in New Zealand, a Maori tribe has successfully fought to have their river and ancestor given the same legal rights as a person. In an interconnected world, can we humans find ways to truly reconnect to all life on the planet? A new era might start with one single idea. There is no Earth and us. We are one.
Hello, everyone. Everyone good? Sorry, I'm not very used to speak with a microphone. I hope it should be okay. My name is Nishiwaka. I come from the rainforest in Amazon, Brazil. And I'm living here for 4 years now. And when I came here, I didn't know any English. I didn't know nothing, actually. And the weather was crazy for me. especially the weather. But it was okay afterwards. If I walk in the street,
for today is comforted. I am enfolded in God's comforting peace. I like to travel through life lightly with a happy heart, but sometimes I am laid low by a seeming insurmountable obstacle or loss. I understand that painful periods visit everyone occasionally. I open to my feelings of sadness and sorrow and seek the comfort of God's presence in myself and in my loved ones. As I become willing to embrace my feelings while I process my pain, I trust I will be comforted. Pain has come to pass. God's love and strength remain and will be with me always. I am grateful for the encouragement of friends and family. Their loving support comforts me. Even when no one is by my side, I know I am not alone. I find comfort in the Christ presence within me. I move bravely through the pain, enfolded in the comforting peace of God. And from Matthew, blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted.
Nothing you can do that can't be done. Nothing you can sing that can't be sung. Nothing you can say, but you can learn how to play the game. It's easy. There's nothing you can make that can't be made. Nothing you can save that can't be saved. Nothing you can do, but you can learn how to be you in time. It's easy. All you need is love. All you need is love. All you need is love. Love. Love is all you need. Love, love, love. Love, love, love. Love, love, love. All you need is love. All you need is love. All you need is love. Love. Love is all you need. There's nothing you can know that isn't known. Nothing you can see that isn't shown. No you can be that isn't where you're meant to be. It's easy. All you need is love. All you need is love. All you need is love. Love. Love is all you need. All you need is love. All together now. All you need is love, everybody. All you need is love. Love. Love is all you need. Love is all you need. Love is all you need. She loves all you need. Love is all you need. Love is all you need. Love is all you need.
It's my pleasure to introduce our speaker this morning. I'd like to also, just as I've neglected to before, welcome those who are maybe watching online. You are very much part of our congregation, and we welcome you heartily. This morning, we have one of our own as a speaker. Linda Netzusterhoff became a member of Unity 20 years ago, and then her 8-year-old daughter, Sarah, asked to go to church. Sarah, along with Angelina Cousineau and other Great Lakes regions Youth of Unity, formed the beginning of what is now known as Unity Worldwide Ministries Earth Care Program. I remember that. That was really marvelous, fantastic. Thank you, Angelina. Linda is grateful today to share this program started more than 10 years ago as she shares the inspiration and action steps we as a congregation can take in forming a healthier climate via earth care practices. And I think there's nothing, a few things, if anything, that's more pressing and really important for us in this day and age than our climate and our care of our planet. So welcome, Linda.
So I want to say we have the Wizard of Oz in our back corner. That would be Steve Torkelson and Angelina Cousineau. And they have instructed me that if the slides don't progress, I'm supposed to wave at them. So if you feel like, why is Linda always waving at us? I'm waving at you all. You guys are wonderful, both here in the building and at home. Thank you all for tuning in. And Angelina and my daughter, Sarah Duster-Heft, you two were teenagers, 15, 16, 17 years old, when you were with the other groups of the Youth of Unity, as we've just talked about from the Great Lakes regions, and you brought us into this amazing arena of earth care. And in fact, I do have to ask you a question, first of all, Steve. Are we going to try airing that video? Or you are ready to do that? Okay. I think very shortly we're going to watch a video that's about 4 minutes long to sort of introduce this topic of caring for the earth. And let me tell you, some parts of it are despairing. But we are not leaving here in despair. If you feel moments of despair, please be optimistic, because there are things we can do. Whenever you're ready, Wizards of Oz. As he's pulling this up, and as they're pulling this up, I will share with you what Angelina and Sarah Duster have helped create. Oh, here we go. I'll come back to this. Technology is beyond
Us. Earth. Us. Earth. Us. But hang.
So while they're working the kinks out of that, up in our boardroom, we have this covenant that we signed as a congregation back in 2011. And what it says is, Earth Care Covenant Certificate of Completion, Unity of Appleton, has created a conscious awareness of our oneness with creation and made care for the earth a significant component of its ministries. Because of this, the truth that God is everywhere present in creation
Part of the earth.
is alive in the minds and hearts of its congregation and has been translated into their daily actions. We honor Unity of Appleton for its vision of earth care and its commitment to walk upon our earth for the greatest good of all creation, approved this date, the 29th of December, 2011. That makes me cry. That is so beautiful. And some of you were here at that time. Can I have you raise your hands?
Us.
We'll see how this goes. Ready. Ready, Eddie.
Earth. Us. Earth. Us. But hang on, aren't we part of the earth?
And I love her accent. What do you think that is? Irish? She must be an actress because I recognize her voice. So you have to, get your translation Irish guy ear on in order to understand. Earth, us.
Earth. Us. Earth. Us. Earth. Us.
Dinosaurs were ubiquitous and had diversified into hundreds of species of all shapes and sizes. Titanosaurs, large, gentle...
One interconnected ecosystem that keeps us all alive. But are we superior, different, or special? Why do we so often feel, separate from the earth? In fact, not everyone does. Throughout human history, lots of cultures have viewed their relationship to the earth in other ways. Many still do. Animism, the belief that spirit infuses objects, nature, and the whole of existence, is a fundamental principle of many indigenous societies. In Taoism, cosmic energy or life force is everywhere and is constantly seeking harmony and balance between all things. Ancient Andean civilizations placed the spirit of Pachamama, or Mother Earth, at the very center of their worldview. And today, for many indigenous people of the world, like the Ura tribe in Colombia, the earth is not just the dust from which human beings are made. It's the spirit of their people and ancestors. It's their history. It is life itself. This isn't always an easy idea for people in today's Western societies to grasp. The Druids of ancient Britain did grasp it, focusing their spiritual practices on the reverence and connection with nature. But when Christianity spread through Europe, animism was condemned as pagan and savage. European colonialism enforced these views around the globe in places like the Americas and Australia, crushing the indigenous peoples and their nature wisdom. Since the birth of agriculture, humans had been manipulating the world around them, harnessing, dividing and selling its natural resources. But under colonization, the earth became a place to be conquered, dominated, farmed, fished, plundered and mined on a vast scale. Was there any scientific thinking behind our ever-increasing control over the natural world? 17th century Europe thought so. In fact, thought was all the rage then, as French philosopher René Descartes and others like Sir Isaac Newton helped to kick off the Enlightenment, an era that prized reason, science and order. A new view of the world emerged, with human beings as the thinking, rational masters, and nature as our unthinking, unfeeling servant. Standing apart from her, humans investigated nature's ultimate questions, dissecting her into smaller and smaller pieces. This brought us great power. And with great power comes... The Anthropocene age had begun, an epoch defined by one dominant species, us. On a planet that is billions of years old, in just 500 years, much of the human race has come to see itself as the rulers and center of all life. Today, we are still trying to bend the planet's environment, processes and biodiversity to our will. Our vast sprawling cities have pushed nature out of sight and out of mind. The world is attempting to meet the urgent challenge of climate change. But can anything fundamentally change while we still see ourselves as somehow separate from Earth? There are signs of hope. Other voices are starting to be heard once again. Influenced by a resurgent indigenous view of Pachamama, Bolivia and Ecuador have passed laws granting all nature equal rights with humans. And in New Zealand, a Maori tribe has successfully fought to have their river and ancestor given the same legal rights as a person. In an interconnected world, can we humans find ways to truly reconnect to all life on the planet, a new era might start with one single idea. There is no Earth and us. We are one.
There is no earth in us. We are all one. Once we get back to my slide presentation, and thank you for so much, you guys, Steve and Angelina, for bringing that up. And then if we could go to the next slide. So, Unity Worldwide Ministry Earth Care fosters the awareness of our spiritual oneness with our earth home and promotes active care of creation. We act so that every step on our planet home and through our life here is an act of prayer for all divine creation. The next slide, please. The Unity movement is guided by a vision of sacredness and the interconnectedness of all, the interdependence of life. It is a journey of spiritual relationships with Earth and its creatures. It is through awakened consciousness that we see everything as the presence of God in a blade of grass, in the roots of a plant. The next slide, please. When I retired and had a lot more time on my hands, I was looking for something valuable. And lo and behold, it's in my kitchen, on my TV, I'll have you go to the next slide, I found Dr. Doug Tallamy on PBS talking about how insects are so vital to our ecosystem. So here you are on a Sunday morning about to listen to me talk about bugs. And the gist that I understood from his talk there in my kitchen was that they are really picky eaters. And they are dying in vast proportions. And those bugs do things for us. Oh yeah, like they do it all just for us. But that's how we think, right? But they do pollinate 90% of all fruit-growing plants. What happens when we don't have those pollinators? He spoke at the Wild Ones Fox Valley Area Chapters Conference in January, and I spent the whole day on Zoom in my dining room listening to him. And I borrowed some of his, if you could go to the next slide, some of his slides to share with you. He's written a number of books. His first book was called Bringing Nature Home, which awakened thousands of readers to this very urgent situation that wildlife populations are in decline because the native plants they depend on are fast disappearing. And his solution? Plant more native plants. And it was Carrie who said to me that she is very much in support of planting native plants because she noticed that she has many beautiful flowers in her yard, but there weren't any insects on them. Ah, this is what Dr. Tallamy's talking about. And then I went home in my own yard and looked at my flowers, and some of them had tons of insects on, and others weren't even being looked at, like the lilies. So his second book is called Nature's Best Hope, quite honestly, that is a book I'm hoping that we could have as a discussion group, perhaps here. Maybe we can invite other people from the community. But in Nature's Best Hope, Dr. Talmy takes the next step, and he outlines his vision for a grassroots approach to conservation, literally. Carson can now, who is it that's saying literally all the time? Carson. He can now say literally a grassroots approach. Homeowners everywhere can turn their yards into conservation corridors that provide wildlife habitats. Our yard, I've been working on adding more natives. Oh my goodness, talk about a wildlife corridor, and it's fun. I had a turkey show up last summer. I hung out on our front yard, and so I gave it some water. And well, we have had raccoons and possums. What else? And lots of birds. It's really been fun watching the birds. Next slide, please. The sad news is that the World Wildlife Fund's recent report has found that human activities have caused the world's wildlife populations to plummet by more than 2/3 in the last 50 years. That's my adult life from 1970 to 2016. It's happened during the boom of the baby boomers. Next slide. We're back to the idea, not the idea, but the reality that insects are very picky eaters. They have to have the foods that they evolved to eat for, I've heard the word millions of years. I just can accept that that's the case. So there are certain plants, however, that are really important because they're the ones that a good 75% of the insects rely upon. So if you can figure out what those 5% of plants are, I mean, go for the gold. Those are the ones you're going to want to put in your yards. Next slide, please. Dr. Talmy gives us an optimistic, practical approach. Because there are so many of us humans, and the baby boomers and exponential population growth, and when I first was in my 20s here in Appleton, so much of the surrounding areas between Appleton and Darboy and up to Lake Winnebago was all farmland, but it's all developed, it's all commercial. So the problem is upon us, but also the solution is upon us. Dr. Talmy believes that we can have a homegrown national park in our combined yards of 20 million acres throughout the United States. This approach gives me the shivers because it empowers each one of us. Even if you have an apartment, you can have some patio plants. It also shrinks the problem to something manageable for each one of us. And this is what rebuilds the food web. In short, we need to shrink our lawns. We need to shrink our lawns. We need to shrink our lawns. We need to put some native plants. Now, where do you go to find these native plants? Because if I did a mission then, after discovering this in the summer, of going to the local nurseries to find the native plants. They might have one or two, but the question is, but where are they native to? Are they native to our Fox River Valley? And they may not be. So you'll be going home today not with this catalog, but with the phone number to get this catalog. And at the end of our program today, Carrie's going to pass out all the resources I have available for you. This is an amazing catalog. It's an amazing company just west of Appleton, maybe an hour and a half or so. This company has, I just can't say enough about them. But when I opened it up, it was fun to read because They're very specific to your soil type, your sun type, your moisture type. And in your own yard, you can figure out that, oh, this area of my yard is obviously more shady, it's wetter, other parts are dry and sunny, and so you can pick the plants that you need based on your property. And if you think that a little city lot can't do much, Dr. Talmy shared the story of a woman with a Chicago yard, 1/10 of an acre, next to O'Hara Airport, that planted 60 native plant species, provided water for the birds, and in a very short period, she counted 120 species of birds in her yard. That means that those plants had to be homes for all life stages of the insect, the larval stage, all the way to the flying stage. Next slide, please. Well, what do plants do for our ecosystem? They produce oxygen, they clean the water, they capture the carbon and pump it into the ground. We need to plant trees also. They're really good at doing that. They build topsoil and hold it in place. Just think about when in our history we didn't do that. Think about in 1862, which is less than 100 years before I was born. President Lincoln signed the Homestead Act that encouraged hardworking European immigrants to head over to the Great Plains, turn the sod the wrong side up, according to the Native Americans, and plant their wheat. And then it's natural for the climate to have periods of drought. Well, now you no longer have the Great Plains to hold the moisture. Now it's all open fields. And our own current farming practices are needing to be highly scrutinized, and they are being scrutinized. We do not have to plow up the land. You can actually cut slices into the field and plant your seeds. So hopefully, I mean, there's a lot of advocacy in this, but hopefully this is where we're headed. So, plants prevent floods, they dampen severe weather, and they convert sunlight into food. Thank you. Those 5% of plants that feed 75% of the caterpillars and the insects, these are some of them. You might ask yourself, how many do you have in your yards? Native oaks, not me. Native cherries, yep, I gave one to my neighbor. Native willows, I don't. Blueberries don't work in my clay. Native birch, yes. Native maples, yes. Poplars, yes. Goldenrods, I'm ordering. It's on my list. And if you can get your orders in by March 31st, you get a nice discount. So I've got the information for this for you guys. I'm also getting asters. I've been planting sunflowers, and that is a hoot because of all of the little yellow finches that show up. The plantain grows all over, and I love them because of mosquito bites. So I hope you're feeling like I know you're in science class here on a Sunday morning, but it's all part of the healing ministry of Jesus. We're healers, and we can heal the planet as well. Next slide, please. And what insects and birds do for our ecosystem? They provide pest control. We were so lucky a few years ago, there was a family of great horned owls, and I saw the little owl pellets on the sidewalk when I'd walk underneath the tree that the big old owl lived in, and we did not have many rabbits that year. They pollinate, as we talked about, and they disperse plant seeds. Blue jays help those oak forests and so on. Next slide, please. So do you love me now? And what can we do about it? I'm going to kind of fly through these next ones for sake of time. Well, let's say you plant some food for those lovely insects, and now you got a good amount of insects. You don't want to kill them with the light pollution of your yard lights. So get rid of those yard lights. Turn the yard lights into, let's see, you can put timers on your yard lights, or no, not timers, but movement sensors, so that, you know, if the boogeyman walks by, the light will go on and it'll scare the person away. But the night lights they're not good for anybody. Do you even get to see the stars at night with all of our light pollution? Heck no, I'm really tired of that. Let's get rid of all the light pollution. So put a motion sensor on security lights, use yellow light bulbs outside, and use LED lights. And then also, you don't want to kill the insects with all this Mr. Mosquito spray stuff, which first of all doesn't work very well because it only kills the adult mosquitoes. You want to kill the larval mosquitoes. And so you can go over to your local hardware store for under $6, get some mosquito dunk tablets, put them in a pail, and put them in the shady areas of your yard. And that will do a way better and very specifically kill the mosquito larva and not all of the other insects too, even though the companies will say it doesn't kill other mosquitoes, like other insects. You're like, yeah, how do you do that? I don't think so. So there's that. I've got all this information for you. And Unity of Appleton landscaping redesign, this is something we can talk about. I have had a Wild Ones local chapter mentor come and walk on our grounds with me, and there are a ton of ideas of what we can do here on our grounds to improve things. And I could go on and on about that. And the climate change weatherman at the conference I attended said churches are really good for putting solar photovoltaics on their roofs. I'm like, oh man, that'd be something too. And we could compost and make some dirt out of our own food rather than throwing it all into the landfills. And I am working with advocacy with my own Outagamie County supervisor about getting places for people to compost their own fruits and vegetables and eggshells and so on. And I use Lamer's milk crates, and I pile them up 3 on top of one another, and I line mine with a weed barrier, and that's what I'm using. So if you don't need a lot of space and it's not real messy, you can. I've got the information today that you'll be getting has help on how to compost. So this information, start with one action step. See what you're called to do. I've given you lots of ideas, and I would love to meet on a monthly basis, and we could take field trips. Laura, you know I'm a nature lover. I will take you over to see the amazing prairies at Mosquito Hill Nature Center. We'll go to the wild ones. We'll look at our native plants that we're planting. Both Carrie and I and John, and we're all working on that. I think that's all I have to say. And I know it's 1:45, so I think I'm going to end here. But thank you for putting up with me in the science, Bill Nye, the science guy. I don't know, he's like my idol. So, okay, bye you guys.
I now invite you to begin to prepare yourself for a reflective personal prayer and guided musical meditation, after which I ask that you remain in essential silence during the music. If you choose to, you may close your eyes. Feel the weight of your body as it relaxes into your chair and you let go of today's anxieties. Feel your feet on the solid earth beneath as you let go of tomorrow's worries. become aware in this moment of your breathing. As you breathe in life and breathe out love. Breathe in life and breathe out love. And as you become centered, focus your attention on your beautiful heart, your beautiful Christ self. Become filled with gratitude and allow into yourself that which fills you with peace and light. And so we begin. And now I invite you to gently return to this place.
It's time for announcements, but I'd like to change that around just a bit in light and the mood that has just been set for us with the meditation, and as meaningful as that is, I'd like for us to bring our hearts and minds together. You know, the heart and mind of unity is prayer, and we're always in prayer. And I'd like to, in light of the Ukrainian crisis, and a prayer that Carrie gave to me this morning, and I think it's one that might be from Marianne Williamson, by the way. It sounds like her anyway. I'd like for us to join our hearts and minds together in prayer with the intent of focusing on Ukraine and Russia. So let us pray. Spirit, we come together in love and peace and strength and wisdom that only comes from the divine. That is our home, all of us, the whole earth, the whole creation is in the service of peace and love and strength. And so we add our prayer to those around the world for Ukraine. We pray for peace. May the people of Ukraine be protected from violence and warfare. May their hearts and minds be comforted in fear and uncertainty. May the leaders of Ukraine and Russia remember the truth of oneness and order their armies to lay down their weapons, to no more wage war against their brothers and sisters. May the power of God's peace rise up in the people of Ukraine and Russia. May they continue to say no to war and violence, and may their leaders hear their voices. We join with all people around the world, lifting our hearts and our prayers to remember that even in the darkness, the light of God is present, awaiting our recognition. We pray for peace. Amen. So let us now continue with announcements. And one of the announcements, it won't be, we're going to have the annual meeting today, immediately following. But just as a reminder, if you would like any prayers personally, I would be available to do so after the service or even during the week. If you want to contact Unity, that will in turn contact me through Paige, I'd be glad to offer prayer for anybody who would like it. So as just noted, our annual meeting is today after the service, and we held it both here and on Zoom. In order to vote at the annual meeting, you do need to be a member of Unity of Appleton, but if you're not, you're welcome nonetheless to participate in our conversation and discussion. And we need chairpersons for Sunday services in March. Please sign up at the Connect and Serve table. And Carrie, are there any other, is that it?
We do have another workshop coming up in March. There's more information on the table back there. It's about spirituality and money, and I think it's going to be a really good one. You can invite friends. It's going to be Zoom, so anybody can participate. Other community members as well as Unity people can come.
Is that with Reverend Phil?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the follow-up. Okay, excellent. And if you have any more questions about that or concerns about it, see Carrie. Okay, so let us move on with the affirmation of prosperity. And together, Unity of Appleton is alive with the energy of spirit in the flow of divine abundance and radiant with unlimited possibilities. And our celebration of giving and receiving may take your own offering in hand or bless the plate as it comes by. And together, divine love in and through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I joyfully give and willingly receive. I give in love, and I trust God as my source.
think about your shining light, it's very bright. I think about the soul you are, your love and light, so happy together. If I should see you there or where, and you say you're a part of me, and ease my mind, imagine how the world would be, so very fine, so happy together. I can see you loving the soul that is you for all of time. When you share your love, the skies will be blue for all of time. Me and you in unity, no matter how we share our love, it's meant to be. The loving way is me for you, and you for me, so happy together. I can see you loving the soul that is you for all of time. When you share your love, and the skies will be blue for all of time. Me and you in unity, no matter how we share our love, it's meant to be. The loving way is me for you, and you for me, so happy together. So happy together. So happy together. So happy
We are so happy together. Together we are one. And one in love, one in peace, one in prosperity. These are our gifts in all of that, and we give thanks. So together, let's stand up, say the prayer of protection. Together, the light of
God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.
Your love is lifting me higher than I've ever been lifted before. Our love is lifting us higher than we've ever been lifted before. So keep it up, it's my desire, and I'll be at your side
Well, normally I come here up here to guide a discussion, but today not, because we're going to have the annual meeting. We'll start by 11:15, and